Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dean Rowan. I'm the Regional Director for the Professional Risk Managers International Association, and welcome to today's event. We've started a couple of minutes late, but we've got 26 people on already. We had a large number of other persons who have registered for today's event, so we hope that they can join us in the course of the next couple of minutes. So if I look away while I'm in the midst of this introduction, it's only because I'm letting other persons into the framework. So this is the first of our events on an online format, and we hope that you'll find this both timely, informative, as well as enjoyable. We've got quite an interesting presentation today with three very highly qualified, experienced practitioners who are joining us. Today's topic is with regards to smart collections in a COVID-19 stress circumstances, which is obviously extremely timely, particularly for financial institutions, because the economies are not only undergoing stress, the banks are always the end repository of such financial stress. So the timeliness and importance of this could never have been understated. So let me just give you a quick brief of today's agenda. I'm going to do a quick introduction of the Professional Risk Managers International Association. We have a few of the Bahrain PRMIA Board Steering Committee members on the call today, which includes Deepa and Najib, and I haven't gone through all the lists, so welcome to the other steering committee members. I'll then do a quick introduction to Mr. Kapil Raghavan, who's the CEO of Total RegTech Solutions, and then he, in turn, will be introducing two of his key professionals who will take us through various parts of today's presentation. So for those of you who may or may not be familiar with the Professional Risk Managers International Association, it's one of the leading global associations for risk management. We highly recommend you consider joining as a sustaining member. There are 50,000 professionals worldwide, and fundamentally it's a non-profit organisation which is designed to bring international best practice to risk professionals. But it's not only risk professionals, and as you can see by the chart on the right hand side, it has quite a very heavy regulatory and compliance, with 65% being the largest component of all of our practitioners involved in the PRMIA Association. Then, of course, model risk, credit risk, etc. So this is not just only a technical association, it is a broad spectrum of ERM. Fundamentally, if we now look at the number of chapters, there are, in round figures, 50 chapters worldwide. Access by becoming a sustaining member gives you, I'm just admitting some new members, gives you access to both live and virtual events, and we have quite an extensive library of information and resources available at your fingertips. Sustaining membership costs you US $200 per year, and that gives you full access to the library, discounts on major events, as well as access to the Wall Street Journal, and that in itself is worth $450 US to their online account. So I would highly recommend, irrespective of what profession you're in, is to consider becoming a sustaining member for PRMIA. It brings a huge amount of value. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with PRMIA over the years, and I continue to do so. I wanted to thank my steering committee members for their ongoing support. And at this point, what I'd like to do, I wanted to just very quickly talk about some of the certifications. The PRM, the Professional Risk Manager designation, is the leading accreditation, and that's quite a bit of work. But like all good things, difficult things are well worthwhile. We also have the Associate Professional Risk Manager certificate. We also now have certificates in credit and counterparty risk, operational risk manager, market and liquidity, and asset liability manager. So as you can see, the spectrum of offerings now is considerably more than what you may have seen if you've visited PRMIA in the past. So at this point, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Kapil Raghavan, the CEO of Total RegTech Solutions, who will be leading the introductions and then handing it over to his colleagues. Kapil, you're on.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Dean, would you like to stop sharing so that I can start mine?
And we've got 31 people on board, which is fantastic, and they're continuing to pop in.
All right, Dean, just let me know whether you can see my screen.
Yes, perfectly well, thank you.
All right. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kapil. I'm also joined by my colleagues Parth and Vishal. I run Total RegTech Solutions. I'm based in Bahrain. Do you see my screen? I just got a message to say that it stopped.
Your screen is not visible.
I can see your screen. Your screen is up.
Okay, very good. Just give me a second. All right. Right, so I'm based in Bahrain and I'm joined by my colleagues Parth and Vishal. Parth has extensive knowledge when it comes to providing advisory services to financial institutions as well as non-financial institutions. He has also extensive risk modeling expertise and is expert level when it comes to statistical programming. He has also written a lot of research papers and does some offline work when it comes to machine learning and artificial intelligence as well. And he has presented papers to some of the industry associations on this particular subject. So he brings a wealth of experience in terms of how to provide some very strong decision support intelligence when it comes to credit risk and other facets of risk as well. Vishal is the EMEA head when it comes to credit automation. So he has helped a number of institutions across Europe, the Middle East, in Africa, with credit automation, both upstream as well as downstream. By upstream, I mean onboarding customers, as well as downstream when it comes to recovery and remedial credit. I will start with just a one-pager, okay, about what we believe, okay, is the context of today's session. So we all have been through a nightmare, okay, for the last several quarters with the onset of this pandemic and with no real end in sight. Okay, so it has had pretty severe social repercussions, financial repercussions, economic, okay, damage. Okay, and we are, I think, entering a phase where we're trying to get into a recovery mode and put this, as a new normal or something behind us. But we also, as financial institutions, face a lot of, unanswered questions. Of course, there's a lot of push from the government and a lot of support from the government, okay, to be able to, really push and get some economic revival going. With a lot of incentives to industry, okay, to open business, a lot of tax benefits, a lot of support in terms of financial support, in terms of governmental instrument support. But of course, a lot of the damage has been done. So there is obviously a huge pressure, okay, on the profitability of organizations and how they treat this particular episode, okay, as something where you are still licking your wounds, okay, or you are delving into your pockets to see, all right, so where do I invest and how do I strengthen my business to A, get out of this, okay, and B, emerge, a survivor and a victor. Of course, there are lots of issues around health and safety, and especially with the nature of the problem, which is biological, okay, and a viral, okay, infection, which definitely has clear indications of being lethal. And but at the other end of the spectrum is also the disruption when it comes to being in a hospital, being quarantined, And of course, it affects not only you as a person, but it also affects your colleagues in the organization, those colleagues in your supply chain, your agents, any kind of IT vendors or other suppliers, okay, to the institution, your customers. So there are a lot of issues in the economic revival, doing economic activity, and also being very mindful about this entire environment that we're trying to do business in. And of course, there is, because of the pain, okay, which is the economic pain, which is in the market, okay, with common people. There are also lots of thought going around the governments and central banks about how probably to have a social angle to the entire thing, to take care of certain societal needs, having certain ceilings or floors, okay, on rates or moratorium periods or possible means, okay, in which we normally would have recovered the debt. So it's with all of these, this quagmire of issues that we are all trying to stage, okay, an economic revival. Of course, given a business slowdown, okay, given a lot of depressing industry facts, it is but obvious, okay, that what is in our book today and the amount of money that should be collected in the next couple of months, of course, from an immediate perspective of the next quarter, the financial year end, as well as going into the first few quarters of 2021. The existing book and the dollar recovered on the existing book, okay, is of paramount importance, okay, and there was a time where we would say, we would go easy with provisions, okay, to say, all right, let's build a book, let's take these kind of provisions, okay, these are known facts. But in this situation, when we're dealing with unknown facts and unknown, foreseeable future, that dollar which is recovered is probably as equal to, probably even more valuable at this moment, okay, to a dollar of new business. And it is with this context in mind that we are going to talk about, first of all, recognizing the issue, okay, and appreciating it. Thereon, ways in which we address these particular issues. How do we address these particular issues? Parth will talk about how to build intelligence and apply statistical science into making the return on every dollar or every dollar of activity spent into debt recovery more productive. Vishal will talk about how processes can be adjusted, how technology plays a role in elements of doing business, like, for example, social distancing, secondly, working from home, working on the move, like, for example, the reluctance to handle cash notes, okay, as a potential carrier of a virus. These are, the issues that we are beginning to learn to live with, and also ways in which we are able to circumvent these particular issues and get on, okay, with business. I would also like to point out over here that the presentation today is limited to half an hour, okay, for each of these experts. Obviously, they would like to talk about it all day, but within half an hour, we are only able to cover what is, we believe, would be the most valuable, what is also the most practical. So I know that a lot of you are from the credit risk and the retail banking, collections, and remedial credit space. So there is a very extensive set of steps and processes and procedures in this particular function. We may not cover all of it, but we have just picked, okay, those which we believe would be the most valuable in this context. Secondly, I would also like to say that though the illustrations that we will provide you today are very bank specific, this does not restrict the application of all of this and whatever we say today to banks alone, but it could be for any organization which provides credit, okay, to customers and then has to recover those amounts as well. That's just a keynote from my side. I will now be passing the baton on to Parth. I need to stop sharing my screen.
And if I may just jump in before your next professional starts, there are, just as a piece of housekeeping, for those of you who may not have registered for the event, if you could be kind enough to send in a direct message your contact details so that we've got a complete list of all of the attendees for today. Thank you very much.
Parth, are you able to share your screen? Yes.
Hi all, are you able to see my screen and hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Kapil. Hi all. As Kapil explained, we will be covering two major aspects in this webinar. The first one is related to the application of decision science to collections, and the second one would be how to automate the entire process of collections in the event of COVID-19. We would be covering in the first part all the aspects that are related to embedding intelligence in the collection life cycle. And to understand how significant that could be, we will have to go back to 2008 and see if there are any lessons that we can take from there. So COVID-19 pandemic has obviously affected everyone's ability to pay back their debt, and this is a known fact. We also know that what operations guys are dealing with these days in managing the moratorium setups for all of their clients will be passed on in a few months' time, and that same volume will be then handled by the collection agents, and the lenders and DCAs will have a tough time maintaining those volumes because they are not prepared for it. What might be useful in this regard is a quick analysis, and that's around what is the average time it takes for a customer to get back to a financial good. Now, what we mean by that is when a customer defaults, how much time before he goes into collection and completes the entire collection process and cures back and becomes a regular customer. What is the average time for this entire cycle? Now, to go back and to go bad and then to become a good client, it used to take 2.5 years, measured 2 years before the 2008 crisis. When you look at the same statistics, 2 years after the 2008 crisis, it went down up to 9 months. The reason being that there are obviously collection population that has accumulated that was essentially a good population but has been affected purely because of the macroeconomic circumstances. As the economy goes ups and downs, these unsystematic defaulters will obviously get back to their normalcy, they will get back their jobs, and they will become good clients. So a good lesson that we can learn, or on a brighter side, we can say that the volume that the collection agents will have to deal with will obviously increase at a rapid pace during the COVID-19 times, but it will also get back to normal levels very soon as economy picks up. So the lessons that we have learned, or we should have learned, is the following. We need to determine what are the customers that are affected purely because of the macroeconomic circumstances and are otherwise good customers, and what are the customers that would have defaulted in any case with or without COVID-19. Now, once we identify this segmentation, we can obviously treat both of them very differently because their lending behavior, their, let's say, collection behavior is going to be very different from the systemic defaulters. Anyone in the senior management should be asking, therefore, the following two questions. What should they do today to make sure they are, first of all, in a well-positioned manner able to cater the large volume of collections that they will face in the coming times. Secondly, they should also be asking how they can deal with such increase in volume to be collected without damaging the relationship with the customers. And these are the questions that we'll try to get some answers from by implementing decision sciences in the debt collection processes. Now, decision sciences or scorecard development or modeling, these are all synonyms of the same concept. And they have been quite universally being used in the entire credit management life cycle for ages, be it on the acquisition side, be it on the origination side, customer management side, or on the collections and recovery side. Today's focus is going to be applying decision sciences in the field of collections and recovery. And by that, we mean predicting what is going to be the amount that a bank can reasonably expect to collect. What is the best way of matching an agent to a case? What is the payment likelihood, etc. And we'll try to do that in a quantified manner so that we make objective decisions based on that. What's a collection score? A collection score or collection scorecard is an aggregation of all the characteristics that affect someone's ability to pay back the debt they owed. Now, that may include some payment history terms like how many on-time payments has the client been making. If he has been making 95% of its previous payments on time, that means the customer is most likely a good client. Amount owed, is the amount owed very large, and how does it compare to the income that he is receiving? There are also factors that are external in nature, like the macroeconomic factors of unemployment, GDP decline, etc. Eventually, by a collection scorecard, what you intend to receive is a score assigned or tagged against every customer that is due to be collected. And for example, if someone gets a score of 827 out of, let's say, 1,000, you can, with a very reasonable high degree of confidence, say that it has a high probability to pay back the debt. And perhaps your collection efforts should be focused on chasing these clients than someone who has a very low probability to pay back. Yeah. What else can the models tell you when you apply them into your collection framework? They can help you make customer segmentation that are just right for you, because we know all customers are not equally likely to pay. Some customers have very good ability to pay the missed payments, while some are cases that we should perhaps not follow up, and those are cases that would eventually give you operational cost but no recovery. Similarly, there are issues related to cost. How much cost would you incur in chasing a client in a particular manner? There are different channels available with DCAs and collection teams, SMSs, phone calls, on-site visit. What would you choose and how would you optimize the cost of it? What are the recovery rates that you can expect, and how does these recovery rates get impacted by the macroeconomic overlays and macroeconomic changes? Can you expect the same recoveries at the time of recession and at the time of upturn, or do they vary with macroeconomic changes? The fourth one is the resource optimization. You have a team of agents with different skill sets. You have a number of cases to be collected with different level of complexity. How would you match the right agent with the right cases? You can apply decision sciences in that as well. Next one is the collection strategy. When do you really offer a restructuring of debt, and when do you offer nothing in relation to the client's ability to pay back? How do you decide that? How do you improve your customer experience? When do you decide you want to approach the customer digitally, or when do you want a human interaction to get involved? And how do you measure if your agents are making any regulatory breaches when it comes to contacting your clients? Finally, there's also a very strong relationship of collection and collection performance with the enterprise level numbers, specifically when it comes to provisioning numbers or the capital charges. They're all affected with the collection levels that you have. Suppose you have a good collection record, that would inherently lower your loss given default, which is an important factor for your IFRS 9, and that ultimately reflects in your P&L. So, as you can see, by applying decision sciences to the collection strategy, you can achieve not one but many goals, and therefore it is of paramount importance that you start thinking of embedding this in your policies and procedures. Now, to emphasize the gain that one can get by adopting such a strategy, we've put together a case study for a bank in the Middle East, which was a mid-sized bank with about 4950 branches spread across the GCC. The major challenges that the collection department was facing was, first of all, lower collection. They were collecting only just about 35-36%, whereas the industry standard was around 53%. They were also incurring a lot of costs in every dollar that they recovered. It was as high as 33% to recover a dollar from the clients. Also, the customer experience was not that great. The way interaction was being conducted led to a higher attrition rate once the customer got cured, and only 44%, 56% of those clients were retained, and 44% decided to walk away from the bank relationship within 1 year of this collection efforts. What did we do? We made models and scorecards and a bunch of them. The first one that we're going to discuss is customer segmentation scorecard, where we segmented all the different customers that were supposed to be collected into different buckets by including their customer characteristics as well as the external factors like unemployment, inflation rate, etc. When we did that, we were able to distinguish which customers had a high probability to pay back and which customers had a lower probability to pay back. Doing that required us to go into every factor and seeing what the factor level trends are, and some of which are given on your right side. So if you can look at the first graph, you will see that the number of call attempts that you make to a client versus the cumulative recovery that you make from that client on an average has an increasing curve, but the effectiveness of those calls decreases as you make more number of calls. So it means that whether you make 10 calls or you make 20 calls, the incremental gain or incremental recovery that you're going to make is only going to be marginal, whereas the first 10 calls are going to be much more effective. Another important factor was how was the vintage of the client to be collected. So if the client had been only 60 days past due, meaning they have missed 60 days from their last payment due, they were having a very high chances of getting back to normalcy and then paying back as a regular client, and it was as high as 70%. Whereas if someone was 180 days past due, the probability of them returning back to normalcy was as low as 7%. We next move to the third graph, which was an interesting analysis done against the macroeconomic factors. Now, as you can see, the recovery rates and the unemployment rates have an inverse relationship shown by blue and red graphs, and they have a very strong correlation of 87%, meaning that whenever the unemployment was going down, the recovery was going up. Whenever the recovery was going up, the unemployment was going down. So it was a true inverse relationship in line with the business intuition one might expect. These fundamental analysis, we selected a model which was generalized linear model. Simply put, it is a regression-based model with two objectives at hand. First, to be able to determine what would be the probability of payment for each of those segments. And second, at an aggregate level, tell us what the loss given default or recovery rates are going to be with the changes in macroeconomic factors. With such a model, what did we achieve? We achieved a segmentation where the population was distributed into 20 more or less equal bins, with about 5% of the population falling into each of these categories. And if you look at the cumulative recovery pattern, you will realize that about 70% of the recovery happens from the first 6 buckets. If you look at the first 6 buckets, it leads to a recovery rate of about 76%. From the next 7, you're only recovering perhaps the next 20% and the remaining from the last 7 buckets. So in this way, you have clubbed together the customer characteristics in a way that similar kind of customers fall into a bucket, and they have their recovery rates or propensity to pay in an increasing order. Accordingly, the bank obviously had limited resources at hand and limited collection efforts that they could spend. They now have a vision where to focus first. They would focus on high priority clients where the propensity to pay is much higher and had a score of, let's say, 1,000 to 770. The second category, where the score was 770 to 450, was something they would look at once they have perhaps finalized the first bucket. Okay. Another interesting model that we built for the bank and that assisted greatly was an optimization model that would optimize the agent to case matching. What we mean by that is we would rank order the agents or the collection agents based on their skill sets and seniority to handle tricky cases. And we would also rank order the cases based on how complicated they can get. Compared to a random agent match, which is applying no brain and just assigning any case to anyone, the promise to pay ratio was 41%. So when they made 100 calls, only 41% of the defaulters promised to pay back the debt. If their manager was manually matching seniority-based agents to tricky clients, they got a marginal increase in performance, which was only about 45%. Now compare that to a predictive agent match where a model would do this matching and they would get a 67% promise to pay outcomes. So the bank obviously realized that they were not doing it optimally, and by having an algorithm in place obviously leads to more than 25% increase in promise to pay outcome, which is a nice metric to track. The same result was also reflected in the amount collected. So we compared how much amount was the agent able to recover, given he had 0 to 3 call attempts. In the 0 to 3 call attempts, a random agent match would lead to about $3,000 of recovery. Skill-based agent would lead to $4,000 of recovery, and a predictive agent match would lead to $6,800 as the average recovery per agent, and that is a huge gain. Now, obviously, this gain would saturate if you have unlimited number of call attempts to be made, but in reality, nobody has that kind of resources, and you have to obviously limit the number of attempts that you can make. And this second analysis is very relevant to show how much you can gain within a very short amount of collection efforts. Okay, now that we have established how useful a scorecard or a model can be, we would now look at how you can use those scorecard outputs to demonstrate your strategy or to design your strategy. The first one is an action matrix where you would define what action the bank is going to take or the collection team is going to take, depending on 2 outputs. One is propensity to pay, which is likelihood to pay as predicted by the statistical model. The second one is the outstanding due, which is an information that is already available with the collection agency. Combining these 2, you can develop strategy, which would be like, if you have a low outstanding amount and if you have a low likelihood to get back the money, you would essentially do nothing, or you would not spend a lot of effort chasing such clients. However, if you have a high propensity to pay and a high outstanding due, you would perhaps like to focus all your collection efforts in that direction. And that would be an optimized action matrix for a bank to follow. Now, all of this is readily available. What is not readily available in this entire exercise is the propensity to pay. And that is something the model would tell us. Similarly, you can take your actions based on the delinquency type. The second infographic tells you that there are perhaps 5 broad categories of delinquencies that a bank typically sees. And when you look closely at each one of them, you will realize how you can handle each one of them in the most optimized manner. The first one is the self-curer. They have missed a payment or two, but that's not because of any specific reason, and they might cure with a very high degree of probability. You would then perhaps want a very junior collection agent to be assigned with a set script at hand. The second kind is the forgetful kind, who are not facing any financial hardships, but they just happen to miss their payments on time. And for such kind of customers, you do not have to assign even a human agent. You can just send an SMS reminder or a voice message, and that would do the job. The third category are the communicators who have missed their payments, but also have the ability to pay back if the agent rightly talks them into this. And therefore, you'll also have to apply a right agent customer matching algorithm so that the likelihood of them getting back to normalcy is the highest. The fourth one are the troublemakers. They would deprioritize loan payment over some other expenses that they might be having, and an agent will have to talk them into this, and that requires some skills. And you would want your best agents to be assigned to such customer type. The final one is the true underwater kind, where because of circumstances beyond the customer's control, he's unable to pay, and pressurizing him is not going to lead to anything. What a collection agency or a bank should do in this regard is to be proactive in identifying such underwater cases and design and plan and offer restructuring of debt to these clients, so that at least you can either get them partially recovered or expect some delayed recovery. Now, the only missing information that needs to be computed from a model is the customer type. And that is designed by taking customer characteristics, taking its past behavior, and determine whether this customer is someone who usually forgets and misses the payment by a day or two, or is a self-curer with a very high risk, very high bureau score, etc. Yeah. Okay. Now that we've established what a scorecard is, what a collection model is, and what are the gains one can expect from it, how can a bank who has never done this before get on board this journey and be up and running with this format? The first thing that the bank or a DCA needs to do is align business objectives. You have to define the program goals and what you want to achieve by this analytical framework. Once you have your KPIs decided, you then have to work on making models and visualization and inculcate a culture of taking decisions based on data and trend and not on intuition alone. Once you have the model outputs being produced, you then have to design your strategies around it. And once you have your strategies in place, you would then want to operationalize the entire process, pass it on to the field agents to embed this new framework in their processes. On an ongoing basis, you would want to learn from the industry practices that are continuously evolving, embed them into your existing framework, update your statistical models as new data from collection comes by, so that your models are most relevant and most effective. And finally, once this is up and running, you would want to see the gain that you're getting from this framework. So you would want to have an analysis done based on your return on investment in in setting up such a collection analytical framework versus the gain or the increase in recoveries that you're seeing by application of this entire framework. And this is what we are proposing for banks who have not yet started the collection analytics journey to start immediately. The times are such that the volumes of collection that are going to come by are going to increase increase suddenly, and the collection teams across the world are not prepared for it. And there is no point of increasing the collection resources in this regard because no matter how many collection agents you would have by your side, the volumes are going to surpass once the moratorium period ceases. The need of the hour is to have an analytical framework and artificial intelligence to be beside you to help you sail this journey in the most scientific manner and achieve the results that you're looking for. With this, I conclude the first part and hand over the baton to Vishal to take it forward onto the automation. If there are any questions regarding this session, please park them for now, and we'll have a separate Q&A session towards the end. Or just keep writing in the chat box, and I'll take it up towards the end of the session. Yeah. Thank you very much.
So Vishal, you can share your screen now.
Sure. Thank you so much, Parth. Thanks, Kapil. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. A warm welcome to all of you. Very good afternoon, good evening. Hello, one and all. In this part of the session, we shall look at the collection process. What are the challenges that present themselves, and how through digitization we can identify some solutions. The objective is to achieve more collection, to achieve the collection faster, and be smarter in our collections. So with this preamble, I just move forward. So this is how a typical collection process looks like. The first step is to identify who are the collection participants. Your collection teams may be made up of only internal collection staff, or it may be a hybrid team, which is made up of internal staff as well as collection agencies and agents. You can look at onboarding all of these participants into a collection software, which would include KYC, which would include contract management, which would include access control as well. Then the second aspect is data onboarding. See, the customer delinquency data is available at your core system. Now this data can be onboarded into the collection software so that the collection software has all the required data points. Then the next aspect is communication. It is such an important aspect because communication methods are the lowest cost method. We all recognize that collection is a cost and we should minimize this cost. So what are the three communication methods we're talking about? First is sending SMS, second, email, third, the delinquency notices. And all of this, it is possible today to create templates in a communication system and ensure that these communication messages that you have created as a template, they can be sent at an appointed time frame. For example, a pre-delinquency message has to be sent a week before, so you can program it and it would be sent by the system. At the same time, it is important to track all these messages that you have sent so that At any point of time, a collector working on an account knows what is the prior history of this customer. And then the conversation will be more meaningful when the context is there. Then we next move to the item number 3. Parth also spoke about the collection strategy, about customer segments. Now look at your entire collection book, and then you segment them and apply the right action or the treatment to each segment. I can give you one example. Let's say it's an early stage collection and you want to start off with communication. So you start off with the communication messages, and then maybe from day 5 or day 7 onwards, you want to start off with telecalling for the cases who are not paid yet. And subsequent to that, the cases which are identified for field collection, you can actually go towards that. So that could be a strategy that you want to do that for specific segmentation. And then the next important thing is that I already spoke about the telecollection and field collection. Now you have to allocate these accounts to these telecollectors and the field collectors. Now that can be automated too. And then comes the telecollection and field collection as a module wherein a telecollection software or a field collection software can really help your cause. The whole idea is to bring all these processes into one single system, an integrated system, so that you have a complete view of the collections. Now, when all the guys, we have put all our tools in command, then what we get is all the collections, the payments that we receive. And what I can leave behind is that we need to track all the payment history for that particular account. That is point number 1. Can we enable multiple payment modes so that customer can use the modes that is most comfortable for them to make the payment happen? And then you need reports and analytics so that you have a real-time view or a near real-time view. That's when you can take active participation and take real-time decisions. And then comes the hardship area. In the hardship, I would want to point out 3 important aspects. One is settlement, where a customer is genuinely not able to pay, and you have already identified an account that, hey, you can give them some discounts and then kind of issue a settlement letter, track payments against that settlement letter. I mean, that is one step. And customers who have to be taken to legal, so those accounts you can send the legal notices, etc. And then third, for secured loans, you can initiate repossession. So that is also part of a single system. And last but not the least, and I'm sure all of you are concerned about this, particularly in the COVID scenario, it's a write-off account maintenance. Now, these are the accounts which are called as non-performing. You can't track them in your core system. Then how do you manage that collection? In that context, I would say that a digital debt collection system today is capable of tracking all these accounts, tracking the promises against these accounts, and collecting payments. So you continue the process till the very end so that you can maximize every dollar collection for your organization. So with this, I have summarized the collection process per se. Now let's observe what are the challenges we face on a day-to-day basis. So I have organized this slide in such a way that the challenges, I have put them in various towers, and I start from bottom and I go to the top, and I come up with solutions at appropriate time. So just read these slides from the bottom so that we can be together. The first aspect that I want to highlight is the communication, because these are the 3 major tools: SMS, email, demand notices or the letters. Second is telecollection. Third is field collection. And this is where the cost increase. Communication, lowest cost; telecollection, slightly higher cost; field collection, more expensive. So you go in that order. And so communication. See, I have seen organizations which use a separate siloed communication module, and those communication histories are not tagged to the account. So any point of time, a collector is not having the benefit of the history of the communication with that particular account. And in the second tower, we want to highlight that what is the stage of evolution of different organizations. First is that many organizations are manual. The biggest challenge of the manual process is that you need to have a larger human resource. the teams will be much bigger, because the span of control has to be small, because there is no other way of tracking them, because it is completely manual. Second, it also leads to fraud, because things happen outside the system. Even reconciliation will take lots of time. And it is so important that we gradually move out of manual processes to at least a semi-automation process, maybe using an Excel sheet. But even Excel sheet has its own challenge. Now look at the collection team. They could be back-end collectors, they would be front-end collectors, they would be tele-collectors, they would be somebody who's in the field collecting payment, all of them together. They are sharing information over emails in Excel. The biggest challenge is data inconsistency. You want to change something on the fly, you don't know which Excel file to change, which date's email is the latest. So all of these challenges come in. And more importantly, you end up losing a lot of time. Precious collection days at the beginning of cycle are lost. So our effectiveness reduces. Second, you want to have a prioritization of accounts. Let's say you allocated 100 accounts to a collector. Then how do you prioritize? Now that is something, if at real time you could do it, so much more value you can add to the collection process. And then reassignment of cases. I'll give you an example. I gave you an example already, that you want to assign the cases to telecollection first, and then after, let's say, 2 weeks, you want to give it to field collection for cases which are telecollection is not able to produce result. Now, what is required? Reassignment midway in the collection cycle. So if it is not possible, you lose some power in the collection process. Now, coming back to this point and look at it, why do we need to bring it out of the telecollector's bucket? From the telecollector's allocation, we have to remove when the telecollector is not able to find the right party contacts. Even the contacts of kith and kin, office colleagues, none of them are available. Then what do? We have to assign these accounts to the field collectors. Now, for that purpose, we need to be really, it's important that field collection is a higher cost item on our collection cost. At the same time, we need to ensure that the time that they take is less. So we need to bring in productivity tools here. And we will talk about that in the later part of the session. And then the next tower really talks about lack of visibility. Now, what does lack of visibility come from? Now, one of the biggest challenges is that there are disparate systems, unconnected systems. And this results in challenges like you can't track the accounts on a daily basis. Imagine a scenario where you are calling a customer who has paid up yesterday, or there is a customer who promised to pay 2 weeks hence. Now what happens? The customer experience goes down, and the collection cost or the collection effort that you have put in, that also is unproductive. You want to pay up your best collection agency, but you realize, hey, the contract has already expired. Now, this is what happens when you have disparate systems. When we bring all of this together, then only you can get the effectiveness in collection. And that is what we would want to address in the solution aspect of the presentation. Now come towards the next thing. Now, customers today are not comfortable handling cash. And they are looking at no-touch or low-touch methods. And obviously, the digital payments, internet banking, wallets, all of this have suddenly found a lot of favor. At the same time, payment history need to be available at the fingertips of the collection agent. So that is another challenge which many organizations do face, and they need to look at, hey, are there any solutions available? Now, once you have collected the money, now imagine the challenges will get more complicated. Payment is no longer coming from 1 or 2 channels. The payment is coming from various channels, internet banking, the payment already pre-scheduled, and wallets, cash, all of this coming together. Now, in that context, reconciliation, application of this money into the customer's account, that becomes so important. And those of you who are still living with manual paper receipt, I think it's time to wake up, because nobody wants to touch paper today. And that's where we want to look at possible solutions in this area. Now look at the scenarios of fraud that is possible. So we just need to be cognizant of that. Now coming to the point which I will pick up from Parth and Kapil both, that this is the time where the collection workload will increase drastically. Now, there will be a lot of customers who may not be able to pay upfront. You may, by the law of the land, you may have to go towards a write-off. Now, while you extend the courtesy to the customer, at the same time, you have to figure out how do I track the promises, how do I collect the money. At the same time, cases which are identified for illegal recourse, you can also proceed firmly. Now, that is something that a truly digital system can provide, and we will look at how it may be possible. So with this, I am looking at the next dimension of the challenges. That is in the context of COVID. Are the challenges the same, or have they increased? So let's look at this. So now I will be adding some of the COVID initiated challenges on the top of what we have covered in the previous slide. So these COVID induced challenges are in the blue color. So in the communication aspect, let's be cognizant that we have to comply to the regulation of the land. There is regulatory guidance across the world, and where the regulators have advised that there is a loan repayment moratorium for some time. And some countries have given extension towards that as well. In that context, it is pertinent that we have appropriate communication with our customers and assess who are the customers who potentially need loan restructuring. It is so very important for each one of us, and more so, it is a regulatory requirement. So we must be mindful of that. In the next tower, I want to highlight the challenge which COVID really put us through. Many of our customers got stuck in containment zones. They moved to some other country or a city and they got stuck there because of COVID. Some of them actually skipped as well, which happens any point of time. Now, in that context, we need to have the field collection activity and those solutions we will discuss in the next slide. Now, coming back to the visibility aspect, one challenge was very pertinent. One is that when you wanted to work in this scenario, all of us actually braced up to face up this challenge, but there was absenteeism. There were people caught up in those containment zones. There were health issues. Now, you have to work with reduced workload resources. At the same time, the second challenge was work from home. All of a sudden, it was a norm. Now, in that context, many of us may not have been equipped to manage the entire process remotely. Now, that is where a digital system can come in and help us. Now, the next aspect. Now, Parth really made a very interesting point that beyond a point, number of calls don't give a high incremental value. Now, what do? You may want to look at, hey, can we meet up the customer and really assess what is his situation? But COVID did not allow that to happen. Now, in that context, let's look at how can we make these meetings happen. So one was through video conferencing. So the digital collection systems today come up with those video conference capabilities. They come up with the capability to accept multiple modes of payment, like the wallets, along with the old-fashioned the cash. So all of this is possible. And there are methods now deployed that people who go out in the field to collect cash, they take appropriate precautions to handle cash. And now moving to the next tower, let's all face it. All of us are facing a very high amount of pressure in our own respective jobs. And all of us also realize that there are some customers who are taking undue advantages of the moratorium. And there's maybe some of our colleagues who may be under a lot of pressure. So let's be cognizant that there are heightened risks during the current time. And moving on to the next tower, already we have spoken that there is increased caseload at this time. Are we geared up for this? And definitely a digital system will really help us. As soon as the moratorium is getting over, it's the right time that can we get started onto something like this and be able to collect the money. And I truly believe that this will really help banking survive if we have the right tools and techniques all available to our disposal. Now, coming to the next slide, this is the slide with the silver lining. I'm no longer going to talk about the challenges, but more about the solutions. Now, on this slide, I'm going to add some data on the top in green color, which represent the solution. Now, on the communication aspect, tracking the promises and collections in a software. in one single integrated system, maintaining the communication history so that I'm equipped. So if I'm a collector, I know, hey, this guy has paid diligently over the last 5 months. So there is a very high likelihood that he may pay. Even if he's not paying, I know he's a guy I can depend on. Now coming to the next tower, prioritization of accounts or automated allocation of accounts. All of that is so important. Collection strategy. That is something that is possible. Now, define a collection strategy, segment the customer, apply the treatment onto that segment. That is something you can achieve through a digital collection system. Coming on to the next tower, when a customer gets stuck, you're not able to trace them through phone calls, etc. Now, what do? You end up having the need to meet with them. And in that case, a field collection app where a field collector goes with appropriate precaution is required. Now, biggest challenge in field collection is that when the guys are out in the field, you don't know where they are, what are they doing, what challenges they are facing. So this can be mitigated by having a geolocation tracker where you can tag them where they are, how many meetings they have done, etc. There is a Google Map integration, makes it so easily possible today. And the next aspect is the capturing the new contacts, whether you are a telecollector or you are a field collector. There is a need to capture the new contacts when you establish the connection with the customer. So that is something that you can do. Now imagine when you meet a customer, you also capture the geolocation. Now that becomes a surrogate for the customer's location. Now that is such an important data that a digital system today can provide us. Coming to the next tower, I would want to highlight that when you are living with disparate systems, there is an opportunity today to move into an integrated system. And that system, which has a single interface, a single sign-on, imagine available on mobile or a tablet or a web. Not only you have an auto dialer integrated or a contract management part of it, or a field collection or a telecollection part of it, you are having credit bureau and all external data sources which will help you enrich the collection processes. Now, having said that, I would want to highlight to the next aspect, which is the solution aspect of induced by COVID, video calling. Now, why does video calling become so important? Because when you talk to a person over a phone, many times you don't do a video call with them and you don't get the expression. But with a video call capability in app, you can not only observe the customer's expressions, at the same time, you can record it for compliance purposes. Now, this is such a big intelligence that you are bringing to the collection system. Now, imagine another scenario where you just make a phone call, but you are able to record it as well. That also is an additional capability. Then we have the multiple payment modes. I've spoken about it, and we will give you some examples as well, which will make it very, very clear. I move on to the next aspect. Why do frauds happen? Because things are not on the system. Things are still manual. Things are disconnected. Things are not clearly visible. It takes time to connect the dots. And that is where I would advocate to bring the entire collection process on one single integrated system, and which also includes e-receipts on SMS and email. When that happens, you know that even if a collector is involved or a collection agent is involved, you are sure as a collection head that, hey, the money is safe. And that is the biggest value that I would propose that, to you. Now, coming to the last tower, the hardship tools. Now, this is the scenario where I did mention about the three hardship tools: the legal, the repossession, the settlement. These three aspects can come into place. You can track the complete legal process where the case is either sent for arbitration, or it is notices have to be sent, or an execution of a notice has to be done. All of that is possible. Or let's say you have to repossess an asset in the worst of cases, then you can track the complete repossession, and it is available in one single login and under the account. Now you have the complete communication history, you have the complete collection trails available with the customer disposition code, you have the contract details, the past behaviors of the customer in terms of the payment history. All of that is available at one single place. So that itself is a huge value. and which will help any collection department, particularly when we are all knowing that the case loads are going to increase. And every dollar today brought back to our organization really strengthens our case, strengthens our organization. In that context, I would just want to present one specific scenario, how a digital collection system can help you. Now, here is a case where we have a customer by name Abdullah. Now we have a collection officer. His name is Yasser. So Yasser has set up a video call with Abdullah. Abdullah has taken a fat sum of money on loan. And when he gets the call from Yasser, obviously he's not too happy. But Yasser is an experienced hand. He has a very good conversation with Abdullah. He extends the right courtesies. Abdullah opens up and he says, hey, Yasser, you know, I don't have money in my account right now because I got a pay cut, but I'm expecting that some of my pay cut will be restored. But let me tell you, my friend, I have some money in my wallet. If you allow me a method where I can pay you this money which is lying in my wallet, I'm not able to transfer it to my bank account either, I can give it to you. Now, Yasser does a very quick thing at that moment. He sends a payment link to Abdullah, and Abdullah is able to, Abdullah gets an SMS, email, and Abdullah is able to click on that link. It is integrated with the payment gateway. Now he gets all the options. He can pay it by the wallet, or if you would want to pay with internet banking or anything else, he could have done that. Now in that scenario, Yasser worked very diligently with Abdullah, ensured that the link reaches there and the payment happens. And once the payment is collected, you know what happens next? There is an e-receipt the system sends to Abdullah on an SMS and an email. Abdullah is happy. Now look at from the perspective of the collection head. The collection head wants to know what's happening. He or she is also under a lot of pressure. The collection head wants to know, where is Yasser? What is he doing? Through the geotagging, he knows what's happening. Where is Yasser? Whether Yasser is in the field or whether Yasser is taking a video call, the collection head is able to know. And what is happening? What are the emotions happening at the end of Abdullah? Abdullah is happy. So Yasser, with all his expertise, all the digital tools available at his end, he was able to make the payment or the collection happen, which is absolutely fantastic. At this point of time, I would take a pause and show you a short video. So this video is a short video, just about a minute or so. And I want to highlight a specific scenario which I request you to observe. I have used a debt collection mobile app, and I want to highlight three important things. One is automatic allocation of the accounts to the debt collector's mobile app. That is one. Second, automatic prioritization. Now that prioritization could be based on days payment due or principal outstanding, etc. At the same time, how the trails get updated, because once the call happens, the trails are extremely important to know what is the customer disposition. So we will just play this video. I will just unshare my presentation for a moment and then play the video. I've shared the video sound as well. The video begins now.
take feedback.
Please give the account number.
2183858.
What is the customer disposition?
Address not found.
Remarks, please.
Address given was incorrect.
Thank you for updating account information.
आज का PTT दिखाओ.
Hi, you have 2 promises to keep today. Shamina Seshapri Kumar has 170,000 to pay. Amar Jiwa Deche and EAS Shah has 1,700,000.
With this, I conclude my video and pass back the control to Kapil.
Great, thanks, Vishal. Dean, this concludes the very quick topic discussion today, and it's open house for you to chair.
Excellent. Well, look, thank you very much, Vishal. It's really great to have somebody with such enthusiasm speak today, and that's a very interesting topic that is incredibly timely and useful. So I think it's probably best now just to throw this to everybody, and I will unmute everybody, and if you could just pose the questions to the team would be most welcome.